Here we go with Applied Lab 7.5.3, preparing data for analysis. Read through our exam objectives that we've joined a data analytics team for a manufacturer, and the business is kicking off new initiatives to improve operations, and reliable, clean data is critical for success. We'll prepare 2 data sets to track production and employee-related information, and we're responsible for preparing, cleaning, and transforming production and employee data to meet business requirements. Okay, let's continue. First off, we're going to log in, and this is a little bit different, and I found that these do not work, these passwords. I have gone over to the resources tab here, and I've clicked on this password, which is the typical one that we use, and that seems to work. I don't know why. There's a lot of errors with this lab. This is error number 1. We'll find more. So we're going to open SSMS and expand the AdventureWorks 2019 database. Here we go. We will connect. So the AdventureWorks 2019, we'll go into databases. We've got these 2. We don't want the DW one. We want just the 2019. And we want to go into the production work order table and write a basic query that returns all the fields. So again, we'll check out the tables. We're going to head down to production dot, we're not. Okay, so we're going to do the production work order. We'll right click on it and select the top 1,000 rows. Again, this is a quick and easy way to get all the fields listed. Select top 1,000, and here are all the fields that we want to pull. So, what is our main form of navigation within SQL Server Management? We use, this is called the Object Explorer. What is the from statement for this step? So from AdventureWorks 2019, that's the database, production dot work order is the table. So AdventureWorks 2019 production dot work order routing, no. 2018, nope. AdventureWorks 2019 production and work order. Okay, that looks correct. Can work order ID contain null values? All right, so we need to understand if something can contain null values. So to do that, we're going to go into the design view instead. So we're going to hover over a production work order, right click on it, and instead of select top 1,000, we're going to do the design view here. And remember, this is what pulls up all of our fields and the data types, including the nulls options. So can work order ID contain null values? Work order ID, allow nulls, not checked, so no, which makes sense because that's our primary key. Can scrap reason ID contain null values? So scrap reason ID, and that is checked, so yes, it can. How many records are in this data set? Well, now we need to jump back to the table that we ran. So here it is back on this tab. And it's only showing us the top 1,000 rows, so we need to clear out this top 1,000. We'll just delete that, and then we'll execute again. And now we can see that there are 72,591. All right, next, minimize the SSMS window and open Power BI. We're going to be jumping back and forth, so we'll get started. Connect to the AdventureWorks 2019 database and expand the production work order table. Log in with the default credentials. Oh, this is in Power BI, okay. Okay, so we want to access the SQL Server. And our server is not listed here, but we've seen it before, so we know that it should be data 01. It'll tell you later in the lab, which I think is another flaw in this lab, SQL Express. Okay, it tells you to open up the production work order table along with the database, but you do not need to put AdventureWorks 2019 database in here. I like to choose it on the next screen because sometimes you type it incorrectly and it can just be easier to do this. So I'll just leave the server and then I'll choose the database on the next one. I'll use my current credentials. All right, now I can choose which database I want to go into. So AdventureWorks 2019, we'll expand that. And then again, we need to go down to the production work order table. Production. Work order. Okay, and then we are going to transform data. Next, we're going to convert work order ID and product ID to text. So work order ID here is showing that it's an integer, a number. So we'll click here and we'll click text. And then product ID, we'll also click text because oftentimes we want these unique identifiers to be text and not numbers because we never want to add them. They're just a symbol of an item, not an actual number. So this says you will often have more fields than are necessary for the report. The goal is to determine time between the start date and the due date and the start date and the end date for the work orders. Could look through, there's no directions. So we're going to click close and apply here. So it's loading into this data section side panel. It's telling us about we only need certain fields. So if I click the expansion caret here, it says in the data section, delete the unnecessary columns associated with scrap. Click on the ellipses next to the right of the column of field names in the data section. So I'm going to make this just a little wider. Okay, so the scrap columns, scrapped quantity, here's the ellipses, and we can delete from model. Honestly, I've never deleted fields from this way. I usually delete them in the Power Query tool, but you can do it this way as well. And then scrap reason ID we wouldn't need anymore. Okay. We're going to save the file as work order dates in the datasets folder. So file and save as. Browse this device. Get to the desktop, datasets, and we'll type in work order dates. Save. Convert the data type for the date field to the appropriate data type. Another situation where I'm not really sure, I feel like it's making a mistake here because you can't convert it in this space. So we're going to have to open up this Power Query again by here on the table, we'll click the ellipse and we're going to edit the query. And here is where we can edit the type, the field type. So we're going to change this from to the date only type. Date instead of date time. They're all midnight, so that's unnecessary information. Okay, do we have any more? Modified date, okay. Any others? Okay. Convert work order ID and product ID to text. Another situation where we have already completed this task. It's already text. So again, an error. In task B, we're going to practice profiling the data set. So we're going to use Power BI Power Query to do some basic column profiling on the first 1,000 rows of data by connecting to the AdventureWorks database, navigating to the work order data set, and transform it to get into the Power Query editor. Recall that we can use tools in the view section of the ribbon to use profiling tools like column quality and column distribution. Again, this feels a little bit like an error because we already have this up like it asked us to. So we can come over here and we can use the view, and we can look at our column distribution, column profile, and column quality. Here we may also profile the entire data set using Power BI Power Query. I feel like that's exactly what it told us above. A lot of errors going on here. How many missing entries are there in the work order ID column? So we're going to look for work order ID. We're going to turn these on. So we'll turn on column distribution, column profile, and column quality. I'm going to make this full screen so I can see more of it. I'm going to collapse that side. All right, so work order ID. If we look here, we don't have how many missing entries are there. Missing entries would be empty. We have 0. When profiling the entire data set, are there missing values in the scrap reason ID column? Here again, they've asked us to remove that scrap reason ID, right? That was one of the scrap columns that they said to remove. However, when you remove it, I left this step in there because when you remove it from the Power Query data section over here, it actually is just adding a step in Power Query here. So I can see here was that removed column step. So I can jump back here to before I'd done that. I guess to the one before it. And we can look to see if there are any missing values. So scrap reason ID and empty. Yes, there are lots of empty. 995. So yes. Based on just the top 1,000 rows, how many unique non-null entries are in the scrap reason ID column? So I'm going to actually just remove this, remove the removed column step. Sometimes it is an issue if you want to remove a previous step because this step or a future step might rely on something that's in there. In this case, it doesn't, so it's safe for me to do that. This is the warning that tells you that other steps might be affected. So now I have those columns back. It's like I never removed them. That's one of the nice things about using Power Query with non-destructive steps. So here's our scrap reason ID. And the question is asking me, based on just the top 1,000 rows, how many unique non-null entries are in the scrap reason? Oh, here, we went up here. When profiling the entire data set, are there missing values in the scrap reason ID column? We're not profiling the entire data set. We are only profiling the top 1,000 rows here. I can click this and do the entire data set. Because there are over 72,000 rows, it takes a long time to do that. So here again, I think this is a mistake, especially considering I don't even need to do the entire data set. I can just look at the top 1,000 rows and I can see that there are nulls in here. So I already know that there are nulls, so we click yes, and we score that. So based on the top 1,000 rows, how many unique non-null entries are in scrap reason ID column? So we will look, there are 5 empty. If we hover over empty here, we have 5 valid and then 995 empty. So they're looking for non-null entries. Right here it says there's 5. Here we have 0, 3, and 16. I'm thinking it's not 0 and it's not 3. We have at least 5. I'm wondering if this question is wrong and it's supposed to be based on the entire data set. So the only one that it could possibly be would be more than 5 because we know we have at least 5. So I'm going to do 16. All right. It's fun when there's lots of errors, right? So are there any columns with non-valid data based on the top 1,000 rows? Let's take a look. So here we're looking for error or the valid. So 100, 100, 100, 100, 100, 100, 100. Oh, here we go. Grab reason ID. So we have some, yes. I think when it says non-valid, it's asking if there are errors. And if that's the case, there are no columns with errors. But I'm unable to check that if that's exactly what they're supposed to be asking. So unfortunately, we'll get that one wrong. Task C. In this section, you will create an ETL process to extract, transform, and load data for the HR team to send a letter to employees. Here is the HR letter to employees that we're going to be crafting. Okay. So our goal is to provide the data in a cleaned state so that the letter can be generated. You will use the data from AdventureWorks 2019 and the view labeled human resources.vEmployee. So we're going to connect to AdventureWorks database in SQL Server Management Studio. So we'll jump back over here to SQL Server Management Studio. We're already connected to the AdventureWorks 2019. We're going to select the top 1,000 rows in the human resources.vEmployee. So we're up here at the top here, human resources.employee. We'll do the select on top 1,000 rows. And I was just checking to see, this one says vEmployee, and this one says just regular human resources.employee. So I don't see another one that is employee with a V. So they must be referring to this one. We've connected, we viewed the top 1,000 rows. How many employee records are in the data set? 290 rows. We're going to close the view without saving changes. I am not in favor of closing anything until we know that we don't need it anymore. So I'll just leave it open. All right, so we're going to connect the human resources vEmployee using Power Query in Microsoft Excel. All right, so we're going to open this same database in Excel. Open up a new book, data, get data, and then from a database, SQL Server. Here it tells us what our database name is, so I'm going to copy this, Control C, and Control V to paste. Again, I'm not going to put the database in, just in case something is incorrect or I don't have to worry about spelling it correctly. Use my credentials. Click OK. AdventureWorks database. And we're looking for the human resources vEmployee. And we'll transform the data. In the Power Query editor, we want to change the middle name column to only display the middle initial and a period. As an example, Mark would become M, and a middle name of A would become A period. Then we're going to rename the column to be called middle initial. You may consider using custom column from the add column section to complete this task. So custom column is really not the choice that I would use. Here is our middle name column, and you can see that some have just a letter, some have a full middle name, some don't have anything, they have nulls. If you're not familiar how to do something like this, you could use something like a ChatGPT or just Google with Gemini. So let's try that out. We could write a question to Google Gemini or ChatGPT, something like, in Power Query, how can I use the custom column function to change the middle name column to only display the middle initial and a period? I'll paste that into Google. And here it says to change the middle name column to display only the middle initial and period. Here are some steps. Add a custom column, define the custom column. In the custom column formula box, enter the M formula. So here is our formula here. So we'll copy this using the text start function and select OK. Okay, let's test this out. We'll add a custom column. We'll call it middle initial. And then down here, we'll paste our formula. Text.start, middle name, but we want to make sure that we're using the right capitalization. With a 1, this part is going to grab the first character, and with the 1, and then this part is going to add the period afterwards. Okay, so J, L, A, good. And notice it's at the end here, and it's looking pretty good. But a custom column isn't the only way to do it, and it's not the way that I would have chosen to do it. I would have chosen one of a couple other ways. I might have taken this, all over here in the add column. I might have done a column from examples, where you can kind of type in the examples that you want to show it, and then it'll try to guess based on your examples and fill in the rest of the rows. So let's do this one. So here's our middle name column. The first example. Okay. So we're going to type in J period. The next one we'll do L period. The next one we'll do nothing, nothing, A, and you can kind of see faintly that it looks like it's picked up what we're doing. So this is pretty simple. It grabbed it pretty easily, and then we'll click OK. And then it fills it in. The other way that I might do it is to pull from the middle name column, extract from the column. So we'll take extract, and we're going to do the first characters. We're going to do one character. How many starting characters to keep? We're just going to keep the first letter. Okay. So now it's kept this. Now I can take this first characters column and I can transform it. Go to the Format tab or Format button, and we're going to add a suffix, meaning prefix is what comes before, suffix is what comes after. So we want to add something to the end of this, and we want to add just a period to the end of each one. And now you can see that it has added periods to the end of it. And then we could change this to middle initial. Okay, so two different ways of doing that. So I'm going to get rid of these two columns. We don't need them, or I guess I'll just delete these steps. And to duplicate that, we'll just leave the custom column here with middle initial. Place the null values in the new middle initial column with a space. Okay, so we still have nulls here, so let's right-click on the null and replace values with a single space. And now there's a space in there. The other way that I could have done that, so if I undo that step, I could have right-clicked on there and replace values, and I could type in null and replace with a space and click OK. And it does the same thing. All right, so we've done that. How many nulls are in the middle initial column? Sure wish it would have told us or asked before we had got rid of them. So let's go back to the view and we'll do the column profile. It's not coming up with anything, so we will just look over at the previous middle initial column, middle name, and see how many nulls we had here. 12. All right, scan the data for other null values. So we've got lots of nulls here, we've got lots of nulls over here. Let's add column quality here so we can see how many empty. Lots of nulls there. Additional contact info, we have 100% nulls. So we've done that. Which column was full of pure nulls? Oh, we just found that. Additional contact info. Make sure to type that correctly so that you get it right. Additional contact info. Score. Remove columns that do not have any information in them. I think that's the only one. So we'll remove that column by right-clicking on it and remove column. Then we can take a look through the others. Do we have any with 100% empty? 99% empty, but not quite. 4%, 99, 97%, not full. So we just did one. Might be important to keep key fields like business entity ID, as you do not know when you might need them. Okay, kind of random. So which columns did we remove from the data set? We only removed the one, additional contact info. And that is correct. All right, we're moving on. We're creating the display fields. So it's now time to develop the display name and the address information for the top of the letter. So we're going to create a new field name named display name to show first, middle initial, and last names with only spaces between the field entries. You do not want to delete the original field's last, first, and middle initial. So we're going to type out, we need to combine first, middle initial, and last name. And at this point, I might pull this column over to be more towards the name so that it's in a space that makes more sense for me to look at. So I'm just dragging it over, kind of go slowly, and I'm going to put it right next to the middle name. Okay. So now we're going to create a column. We're going to create a custom column. And we're going to call it display name. And here we're just going to put in the first name by double-clicking it, an ampersand, that's the Shift 7 key. And then to get a space in between the names, we're going to use the quotation marks, a space, and then the close quotation marks. Then we're going to do another and. That's going to join these things all together. And then we'll put the middle initial. And then we'll do another and, ampersand. And again a space, so quotation, space, quotation. And another ampersand. And then finally last name. Okay, so this should be first name, space, middle initial, space, last name. And how does it look? That's looking pretty good. So that's the M code for joining combining text. So what character sequences are necessary for concatenating? Concatenating is another word for joining them. When we're creating a custom column. So we needed, not that, we needed this quotation space quotation, and we needed the ampersand. Excellent. Okay. Move the new display name column to the right of business entity ID. So we're going to move it all the way over. Just going to click and drag it. Keep coming. It's the business entity ID is the first column, so we're just going as far left as we can, and then we'll back up one. All right. And we'll drop it right there. Business entity ID and display name. We're going to rename business entity ID as employee number. To rename something, I can just double click on it. And it gives me the ability to change. So employee number. And then enter to finalize it. Change any null values in address line 1 and address line 2 to spaces. Okay, so address line 1. Email address, email promotion. Address line 1. Okay, so we're going to right click. We're going to replace values. So there are no nulls, so we don't have to do anyone in this one. So I'm going to cancel this. But in address line 2, there's quite a few. So I'm going to right click and I'm going to replace values. And we're going to replace null with a space. All right. And the following steps do not remove any of the original data fields where we are creating additional fields for use. So create a new field for the address line 1 and address line 2 to be combined and name it address block separated with a space. Okay, so address line 1, address line 2. I could do a custom column with that address line 1, ampersand, space, address line 2, but I can also do something where I add a column and I merge the columns. So I've selected both of these by holding shift and clicking them both. And then I'm going to merge the columns. And then it asks me if I want to merge them, do I want a separator? I do. I want to put a space in between them. And we're going to call this address block. Okay. And new columns go to the very end, address block. So here's an example of where it would combine it. Looks good. Now we're going to create a new field using city, state, and postal code and name it city, state block. So I like the merge option, so I'm going to do this in 2 steps. Or I could do it in, well, I guess we'll do this one in M code since we did merge in the last one. So this time I'm going to go to add a column. We're going to do a custom column. And this one's going to be called city state block, one word. And we're going to add city, ampersand. Then we'll do the quotations because we want a comma and then a space and then close quotations, another ampersand. Then we'll do the state province name. Then we'll do another ampersand. And between the state and the zip code, we just have 2 spaces. So no comma this time. So we'll do quotation marks, space, space, close quotation marks, and then the ampersand and postal code. All right. And now we have city, state block, Redmond, Washington, 2 spaces between that and the zip code. All right, looking good. How many new columns have been added to this data set? So we have a city, state block, we have an address block. Let's see, do we have any other ones? I believe we had a middle initial, so that's 3. And we had the display name, so that's 4. Let's see if that works. All right, 4. Close and load to Excel. Home and close and load. Okay. We can save this file to the data for HR in the Datasets folder. All right, File, Save As, Browse, and go to the Datasets folder. And we're going to call it Data for HR and save. So as part of our work of a local nonprofit that has a goal of supporting people during the global pandemic, a survey was created to look at a few key areas of the immediate work from home requirements that were implemented. Open the file in the Datasets folder called Question and Answer Key for Survey and familiarize yourself with the survey questions, fields, answer options, and general notes. So we'll go to File, Open, and we'll look at, let's see if we have enough folders or Datasets folders. And we're in the 7.5.3, question and answer key for survey. Okay. So here are our survey prompts. So these are the questions. Respondent ID, what's your highest level of education? Did your place of employment shut down? All right. And then we have the field name that corresponds to it and our results. And then here are the available answers if there's multiple choice. And then here we've got some general notes. Okay, something like automatic number that is applied to each record. Data has been filtered to yes for this prompt. Okay, people self-classified. And then here we've got like yes or no answers, 5 answers here, multiple choice. Okay, let's move on. How many rows, excluding the header, are in this Excel file? So it looks like there are 14 rows, but excluding the header, so 13 rows. All right. Using Power Query and Power BI, connect to the dataset called Remote Work in 2020.xlsx in the Datasets folder. So I think I'm going to open up a new blank workbook for this rather than doing it in that. And then we'll go to Data. Oh, this says Power Query and Power BI. Okay, so we'll go into Power BI. And we will, this is our old one, we'll just close and load. And then we're going to connect to a totally different we'll connect to a new workbook here. So Excel workbook in the 7.5.3 and the remote work in 2020. And we want the data from survey sheet, so then we'll transform the data. All right, we want to profile the data and answer the following questions. So it opened up in profile with the profile views already selected. All right, so in the data from the survey, how many columns and rows of data are in the data set? So you can look down here at the bottom, 13 columns and 175 rows. Okay, how many columns and rows? So columns is 13, 175 rows. So here it's got it backwards, so I want to make sure we answer the right one. Okay, correct. What education level is the most frequent in the data set? So education level. Let's take a look here. Let's click this and it'll pull up our column distribution here. And it looks like bachelor's degree is the number 1. What employment status is the most frequent? So we'll look for employment status. Salaried. How many hours do most of the survey responders work? Work hours, 40 plus hours. What is the satisfaction level or levels with the lowest response? Satisfaction level. Here's one called satisfaction level. So very satisfied, satisfied, neither satisfied, and dissatisfied or very dissatisfied. And those look to be equal. Just in case, that's 4. That's also 4. Okay, so dissatisfied and very dissatisfied. Okay. Moving on, reducing survey results. Now that we've profiled the data set, we can look a little closer and remove some of the results that don't add value. Using Power Query and Excel, reopen the file, remote work in 2020, and remove any record where someone did not answer the education level, and create a note in the questions and answer key of how many records were removed for this field. Okay, so we're going to close and load this. Now we're going to jump back over to Excel. Where I'll just do this blank one, go to the data, we will go get the data from a file, from a workbook, and we're going to pull up this, again, remote work in 2020, data from survey, transform the data. Why we need to do this in Power Query and Excel, I'm not sure. We want to remove any record that did not answer education level. So here's education level. And so we want to click the drop down and we want to get rid of the nulls. So let's take a look and see how many nulls there were. Empty, there are 2. So if we go ahead and uncheck null and then click OK, now we're left with 173, so it got rid of 2. So how many responses? There were 2. Okay, now it's asking us to go over to the question answer key. In education level, we want to put something in the general notes. Now, you're not able to work in this when you have a Power BI or a Power Query open, so I'll have to jump back over here. Oops, jump back over to this book too, and I'm going to have to close and load it just so that I can work in this other workbook. You can only have one Power Query open, and that kind of it freezes all your other options when you're in Excel. So, education level, we're going to say removed null values or removed records with null values in this field, removed 2 records. So this is just a note for our future self so we know what we've done here. All right, now we're going to use Power Query to create a custom column named 3key Q that will return a marked for removal or do not remove result. So let's go back over to book 2 here. To open up this query again, we'll double click. And we're going to create a 3key Q column that returns a marked for removal. If there are nulls in all 3 of the fields, essential employee, remote prior, and org policy, we are going to mark them for removal. Anything else, we are going to mark them with a do not remove. We're going to go to add a column, and we're going to do a conditional column. And this is going to be 3key Q. It's kind of hard to say. Okay, so if the column essential employee, so basically all 3 of these have to be null if we're going to put marked for removal, marked for removal. So if any one of these is not null, then it would not be marked removal. It would be marked do not remove. So that's what we're going to do. We're going to say if essential employee does not equal null, then do not remove. We'll add another clause. If remote prior does not equal null, then do not remove. Because remember, any one of these has a value in it, and we're not going to remove it. So finally, we'll have org policy does not equal null, do not remove. And then else, so if none of these are true, then what happens? That's when it's going to get marked for removal. So you can see that you might be able to do this multiple ways. You could maybe do this backwards. Okay. So it looks like it's working for something. So let's check this out and make sure that our logic worked here. So I'm going to click the drop down, and I'm going to check the ones that are marked for removal and see what we have. So looks like we have 12 rows, and we want to go to the columns that we used as our indicators here. So that is essential employee, remote prior, and org policy. So these should all be null, and they are. There isn't anything in any one of these columns. So that's working correctly. So let's go back and uncheck that one and check the do not remove. So in this situation, if there is at least one of these three has something in it, then this is a valid, we want to say do not remove. So let's take a look here. Are there any nulls? There are no nulls. So automatically we know that this is correct, because for every one of these, there's at least something in this column, the essential employee column. In this one, there are nulls, but it doesn't matter, because even if there are a null in remote prior, there are no nulls in essential employee. And for org policy, again, no nulls here. Okay, so it looks like both of those are working. So I'm going to remove the filtered rows. Step. So we've marked that. And now we need to add the note of our function and how many records are marked to be removed based on this conditions to the questions and answers key. So again, we're going to have to go home, close and load. Now we're going to have to go over to our question and answer key, and we're going to create a new row here because we created a new column. So we're going to call it the 3 key queue. Do not remove. Marked for removal. Okay. And then we're going to add in a note about it. Removed, and I might just copy and paste what we did here. Copy that. Removed any record with, and I'll paste, nulls in all 3 of these fields: essential employee, remote prior, and org policy. Removed. So let's go ahead and, I guess we're not removing any record. Marks any record with nulls in all three of these fields with marked for removal. I guess that's really what it does. We didn't actually remove them yet. Okay, so we've added our note. How many records are marked to be removed by this condition? Okay, we'll jump back. And let's see how many we have here. In our 3-key queue. So we just want the ones that are marked for removal, and there are going to be 12 of those. Okay, filter the data to only include the records that are marked do not remove. So now we will go in and we have 161 rows left. Now I believe that I'm going to get an error message here if I do it this way, because I don't think that it includes if you remove the employment stat or the education level where we took out 2. So I'm going to try 163. Otherwise I would do 161. But let's say 163 would be left. And see if that's right. Oh, well, it's not 161 and it's not 163, so I'm not sure what number they're trying to get it for. For the org policy field where the answer is other, please specify other, please specify, replace with just the word other. So under org policy, here, the easiest way to do replace, again, is to just find something that you actually want to replace and right-click directly on it and then replace values, because that way it just grabs that text and puts it right here without you having to copy and paste it or type it out. And we're going to replace with just other. Okay. Done. Filter the data to exclude anyone who did not answer employment status, and note this in the question and answer key file. Remove these from the data set. So here, the employment status, we already did this earlier in a question. So again, how many records are in the refined data set? Now let's say 161. Let's see. Are they gone? Yep. There's no nulls. Yep, I'm not sure. Not sure where we're losing it. So we've acquired the data, we've profiled and cleansed data sets, and extracted and transformed and load data. And let's submit. All right, well, we got most of them right. We just had those last ones that didn't go correctly. Sorry, lots of errors on that one. Don't worry, I've been letting CompTIA know about all the errors. All right, see you on the next one.